Sveiki, man sauc ieraksts Vītols, pārstāv BIM Solutions, un šodien mēs pastāstīsim seminārā par tēmu Ecodomus, jeb BIM aktīvu pārvaldība apsaimniekošanas vajadzībām. Un mazliet par tēmas aktualitāti, tad principā šī tēma ir diezgan jau gadiem aktuāla, jo ir skaidrs, ka BIM izmantošanai tālākai, izmantošanai, apsaimniekošanā, uzturēšanā ir bijušas jau vēsturiskas un ņemot vērā arī to, ka pavisam nesen valsts nekustamie īpašumi ir izsludinājuši šīs prasības pret BIM izmantošanu apsaimniekošanā, tad attiecīgi šī platforma, kur spēja nodrošināt šīs valsts nekustamie īpašumu prasības. Un, protams, ja mēs neskatāmies tikai uz prasībām, uz tādu praktisko vajadzību, šī platforma dod iespējams izveidot tā saucamo digitālo dvīni, kuru mēs varam izmantot apsaimniekošanā un šo informāciju sajūt kopā ar mūsu aktīvu reģistru, veidot dažās notifikācijas sistēmas, referencot pret Gis un tā tālāk un tā projām. Respektīvi veidot platformu, kas jums kā nekustamā īpašuma īpašnieku vai apsaimniekotājiem, kuriem ir jāapsaimnieko šīs aktīvas, dod iespēju efektīvāk to visu izveikt. Mazliet par mums, pirms mēs turpinām pie tēmas, tad principā tas, ko mēs darām, mēs palīdzam arhitektiem, būvniekiem, pasūtītājiem un apsaimniekotājiem realizēt BIM projektus. Mēs to darām caur 3 dažādām platformām. Mēs palīdzam apmācīt cilvēkus ar BIM meistara klasi, kur mēs esam izstrādājuši vairākus praktiskus apmācību moduļus. Mums ir iespēja sniegt pakalpojumus BIM-ā, Baltijas BIM management kompānija, kur sniedz Baltijas mērogā, un BIM Solutions, ar kuru mēs patreiz attiecīgi rādam un stāstam jums par dažādām tehnoloģijām, un kas ir būtiski, ka speciālisti, kas meklē šīs tehnoloģijas, ir ar pieredzi BIM vadībā, projektēšanā, darba organizēšanā un ar apsaimniekošanā. Un pirms kaut kādus rīkus mēs pārbaudam, un pirms rīkus mēs rādam jums, mēs viņus cītīgi pārbaudam un pārliecinamies par to, ka viņi tiešām risina praktisku problēmu un tiešām viņi arī spējams piedod pievienoto vērtību. Un īsumā tas, ko mēs nodrošinām BIM programmatūru un tehnisku atbalstu, dažādas apmācības, konsultācijas, BIM vadību un BIM ekspertīzi, vizuālās programmēšanas pakalpojumu un arī visaptvarošu BIM ieviešanu jūsu uzņēmumā. Tā skaitā arī nepieciešamības gadījumā esam arī pirms tam darījuši un varam jums palīdzēt digitalizēt jūsu patreizējos aktīvus un izveidot un integrēt šo aktīvu pārvaldītas sistēmu, jau izmantojot šo Ecodomus. Lūk, tad šodienas semināru es būšu atbildīgs tikai par ievadu, jo pieaicinātais speciālists Igor Starkovs ir ar ļoti ievērojumu pieredzi, un viņš ir grāmatu autors par digitāliem dvīņiem, vairāk nekā 20 gadu pieredze būvniecības industriālās digitalizācijas jomā, ir strādājis pie vairākiem dažādiem startautiskiem projektiem, tieši pie šīs aktīvu pārvaldības sistēmas integrēšanas un ieviešanas, ir izstrādājis arī šos digitālos dviņus tādām kompānijām, arī kā Google un ASV dažādiem institūcijām, un principā arī pieredze 25 gadu garumā ir dažādi rīki izstrādāt. Tā kā pamatā dosim tiešām runāt Igoram, jo viņam tiešām gan pieredze, gan zināšanas ir kaut kas tāds, kas spēj dot šo jums kā klausītājiem ievērojumu pievienoto vērtību. Šīs dienas pasākuma tēmas, kā jau noteikti esat informēti un iepazināties ar pasākumu grafiku, ir tehnoloģijas darbības principu pārskats, ievads par Ecodomus, BIM un vienotā datu vides un digitāla dviņa nozīme aktīvu pārvaldībā, aktīvu informāciju modelis, BIM integrācija ar projektu vadības sistēmām, dažādām ir ERP sistēma, dažādas mobilo ierīču apskatījums, BIM un lietu internetu integrēšana, lāzera skanēšanas integrēšana, lāzera skanētu datu sajūgšana ar šo platformu un arī Ecodomus paraugu demonstrējums. Un šeit zīmīgi jūs jau iespējams manīsiet, varbūt jau zināms vai tuvākā nākotnē noteikti būs zināmas terminoloģijas, kuras, kā piemēram, aktīvu informāciju moduls, kurus jau gan Latvijā, gan Baltijā sāks pieprasīt gan valsts, gan privātais pasūtītājs. Ok, ar šo slaidu es pārslēgšu uz angļu valodu un došu vārdu Igoram. Yeah. Hello, Igor. So I've done my introduction, so I'm going to be switching from Latvian to English language. And from this slide, I'm going to be giving space to you. And so please share your screen and proceed with your presentation.
Yes, okay. All right, thank you, Eric.
Perfect.
Hello, everyone. My name is Igor Starkov. I'm co-founder and CEO of Ecodomus. Ecodomus is 12 years old now, and we've been the first company that started using BIM beyond just clash detection. As Eric just described, we've been working primarily with early adopters of the information management. These are the government organizations like the US government. We are now a national BIM CDE for the US government, for the GSA, which manages about 9,000 buildings. So pretty much all non-military buildings in the United States are managed through the Ecodomus technologies for the BIM. We work with Sydney Opera House. I'll show you the example today, well-known building. We work with the new city that is being built in Saudi Arabia called NEOM, Google, Disney, and many other early adopters of this technology and approach. So I'll show you a few examples today. The reason why I'm showing this slide, not just to brag, but also to explain that it's nothing new. It's been around for more than 10 years. So, and you shouldn't be afraid to start doing this, because we observe sometimes when you talk to them, they say, oh yeah, it's only the rich guys can do that, or it's only in the US you can do that. Not really. Actually, our best country so far in terms of the implementations is New Zealand. It's not a huge country. It's just people decided to do it because who cares, right? They're a small country, but they are ahead of the US in terms of what they're doing with these different technologies. I'll later show you, if you want, what they are doing in terms of the rail management. The City Rail project is actually Auckland, New Zealand, new metro that they're building, light rail system. Pretty much on all continents, in India, in Singapore, in China, in Russia, in Kazakhstan, in many other countries, you already have examples of how people use BIM for creating digital twins. Well, now let's discuss what digital twin is, right? Because a lot of people understand digital twin as something different from another person. Some people provide the point cloud and they say, well, that's a digital twin. Our understanding is it's the complete virtual replica of physical assets, meaning that it's not just one application or one source of data, it's actually all of them together. So it's a BIM plus IoT plus SCADA plus FM plus JS plus point cloud plus DCIM plus whatever, right? Because every application provides some kind of information about it. Without that application, the digital twin is not complete. In the simplest way to understand what a digital twin is the ability to digitize how it's supposed to work and compare it with how it actually works, right? So there are applications for simulation, there are applications to show how it actually works, and there are applications in between that provide this all data set. Because there are so many different sets of data, you need to have a common environment where all of those data sources can be combined, and that's what we are trying to build. So we're not trying to be the best in sensors management or the best in work orders management. We are a common data environment platform that collects all of that information and makes sure that that information is valid, is that you can rely on that, on the quality of that information. In order to do that, you need to do that throughout the whole life cycle of the building. There are a lot of CDEs that you're familiar with that are well known for every BIM manager, BIM 360 Docs, Aconex, A-Site, many others. But they primarily focus on the delivery phase, which is the project information model approach, right? So we actually believe that operational phase is even more relevant because it's much more costly. About 80% of the cost of the asset is in its operational phase. That's why we extend our city, not only cover the design construction, but also extend it to operation. So that's our key differentiation. It's a life cycle, because in design, our role is really to validate the information that the designers collect and making sure that it's according to the plan and it's ready and clean to be passed over to construction. In the construction phase, we extend and augment the information that is created during the design, and we prepare it for the handover to operation and maintenance. In operation and maintenance, the solution is used for multiple different use cases, because there is no one universal digital twin for all of the use cases. You can create a digital twin for one case, and it's not going to be usable for another case. Like one of the largest clients that we worked with, they said, look, for this building, I don't have much budget. I'm only interested in the water. So if there is the plumbing leak, I want to know where the shut-off valve. So I want to click on the piece of the pipe, and your software needs to tell me where's the closest shut-off valve. But we will skip the electrical systems, or we will skip some other information. Just we don't have enough money for it now, right? So digital twins can be narrow-minded. This is not going to be a complete, obviously, digital twin, but it's still useful, right? And operation and maintenance doesn't end the life cycle, right? You have continuous renovation and upgrades, so your model and other information can be ready to be passed to the next team of design construction people, and again, right? So this is the continuous cycle. Now let's look at the actual example. This is Ecodomus software. It's a browser-based platform. I can search for some location. Let's say somebody calls me from room G534 and says, I have a problem with lighting system, with lighting fixture. My viewer shows me that this 534 is essential service corridor. So I can identify it within this concept of this. I see it's between those two holes, right, on the ground. So I can understand its geometric position. But on the right side, I see all of my components, meaning that there's 1,100 objects in that room. I see all of the attributes of that room. I see all of the documents associated with that room. I see all of the construction issues and the operations, facility management work orders linked to that room. I can look up at its current temperature. I can see how many people are currently inside, and I can ask for how much carpet is covering that area. So I can ask any question, and my product database will tell me what is going on there. Then I can just fly in, remove my semi-transparency, select that lighting fixture that's causing concern, and I can see attributes for that lighting fixture, and I can edit all of that. It's not only I can see it like in many other applications, all of these attributes are editable by me because we extract that information into our database. All of these documents, I can see them, I can mark them up, I can create an issue associated with that document if it's not the correct document. I can track those issues within the application. I can track those issues associated with these objects as well. So like, for example, I have noticed that there is a label, I just clicked on it, a label associated with that box on the wall. So that means there's some open issue with this object, which is the key holder box. And I see that it has an issue, broken handle. So while I will be fixing my lighting fixture, I will also be fixing that handle within that box. So every element that you see in here has the attributes. It is connected to my document storage, connected to my CMMS, to my BMS, to my SCADA. I can navigate anywhere I want. I can move between the floors. I can move into my machine room, and I can do that in 2D, and I can do that in 3D, right? So if somebody is uncomfortable with 3D, they prefer to see 2D floor plans. They can double click on this mini map that shows you currently the cursor. You see where you're moving. You can make this bigger. And now we are in the central concert hall, and I've noticed that my chairs are not being shown because it's a federated model that consists of multiple files. Like you see these files in here. I turn on my chairs. Now I can select any chair and say, I just spilled coffee. Please replace the fabric of that chair. Or whatever I want to do, right? This is the complete representation. All of these concrete slabs are here. If there's crack in that concrete slab, I can select it and say which specific slab needs to be taken care of. Right? So that's the kind of example of what's going on. For those who like 2D, like PNID diagrams or the electrical system tree charts like that, that's also a valid representation of information. You don't always need to work with 3D if you don't need to, right? Because this information actually shows you in a much clearer way how your distribution panel board powers which of these sub panel boards and what locations are getting electricity. So you can trace your whole electrical system. And if you model your electrical system correctly in Revit MEP, then we can extract that information about the systems the same way. So you can see that all. If you haven't modeled, you can create the system diagram inside of Ecodomus, which 90% of models we've seen have not been modeling systems correctly. In this case, this background image has been made interactive because you can embed within Ecodomus interface, you can embed the data, linking it to the sensors, as well as you can link it to the BIM object. So when you click on this panel board, it will open up an asset profile for this piece of equipment. Like in this example, you see this 2D diagram was created for the industrial facility. You see the reactors here. They show the real-time data, but when I click on that reactor, it opens up the profile for this reactor. This is the industrial facility in Siberia, for example, and I see the issues associated with that reactor, and I can open up one of those reactors in my model viewer, and it loads the model and shows you that chemical tank or chemical reactor. All right, and if you want to see, for example, what asset impacts that reactor, you can see this using the effects feature that we have here that shows you that this pump XM8400 affects that reactor. So you click on that pump and it shows you that pump now with all of its information available. And you can trace and see that both in 3D as well as if you look at your 2D, you can see the same relationship modeled in here as well, right? So you can jump between these, either a standard web form for this asset or a 2D representation or a 3D representation. Why people do that? Like I mentioned, it's all about specific use cases. Like if a plumbing leak, your priority, you focus on that. If you want to do the planned utility shutdown, or it's called cascading shutdown sometimes, you can see how much time the new process can save you compared to the traditional process. It's the 2-3 times faster. In some situations, even half an hour is critical. Like if it's the important facility and instead of taking it 3 hours, it takes you 2 hours, it's going to be already huge. Because if you, let's say, have a medical facility, a hospital, or a power plant, and you're just running around trying to find this valve, like I remember one guy from Fukushima nuclear power plant was saying that it took us 40 minutes to find the one of the valves because all we had was PNID diagrams and not the actual visualization. So we could have saved billions of dollars. Well, of course, nobody runs, well, not many people run nuclear power plants, but you understand the scale, right? So if you obviously have some residential 2-story facility, probably it's not going to be as impactful than if you have something like train station or an airport. That's where it's going to be critical. Not only traditional buildings that we were all, when we talk about BIM, we usually mention, right, traditional buildings, but we obviously have now experience with the water plants, bridges, infrastructure, roads, oil and gas facilities. So everything that you can touch that is above the ground can be managed like this. For those who want to prove to their management that there are benefits, even though I would say it's a bit strange after 15 years to start still asking, what is the ROI? Why would we need to do that? There have been books written on this. This book, for example, BIM for Facility Managers, was written by Paul. I was helping him a little bit. It was written 6 years ago, I think. Yeah, so it's been a while. But if you haven't heard about those materials, we can provide those so you can analyze and show to the management, yes, there is a lot of benefits. how to create those models, right? A lot of people think that if I have the construction BIM, I just give it to the client, and the more detailed it is, the better. Nah, that's not so. First of all, there are different types of models, and we need to understand what designers use for their needs and what construction team use for their needs, not necessarily will work well for the owner. Typically, we create a record model which contains both design information and construction information, and it becomes the facility model that is continuously updated over all of the changes. Like one of the clients of ours, they have the model with about more than 20 different revisions of that model, and all of this using the Revit's phase created, phase demolished approach. They can look up and see all of the things that have changed over the years. Not many do that because it takes extra effort, and depends on the criticality of the facility and criticality of the assets. You can define whether it's something that needs to be done or not, because it costs money, right? So to build a facility where every single valve is tagged and every single system calculated the total throughput and everything, for some guys like Howard Hughes Medical Institute is one of the best research labs in the world. Yes, for them it's critical. For some, maybe not, right? It's all based on the standards. Even Howard Hughes, when we started with them, they were originally, I remember the VP of facilities, he went to the management to get the funding, and he was rejected because the clients or his managers, when they saw the beautiful 3D renderings, they said, well, it's probably something as a kind of a toy, or what's the business value? So he came back to us. We worked on the PowerPoint. He presented the PowerPoint without a single image. It was all about text, and all of that was about the data structure and database, COBie. And the clients and the management said, yeah, well, we see that, yeah, you need databases, you need information. So they developed first the requirements. Usually no owner has the detailed requirements. So the more detailed, I would say, the better. The other things that typically owners lack when they discuss the issues is that they do not define the responsibility of who collects the information. They don't dictate which tools need to be used. And so when they tell the contractor or architect, you need to create a good information, maybe provide a COBie file, people say, all right, I have an Excel, so I will just type everything into Excel, right? So I suggest that it's a wrong tool. We've seen a bunch of projects where people try to use Excel for small projects. It will be fine. For decent size or large projects, it's almost impossible to manage tens of thousands of rows in Excel. It's just crazy. Schedule, you need to plan how and when you collect that information. And the processes in terms of how you model, because these 3D models that we are giving, they are not BIM models. They are Revit files or IFC files or ArchiCAD files, but they're not information models. They are just nice 3D pictures. So we suggest that you work with your clients if you are the supply chain provider, or if you're an owner, so you need to define those. Follow the ISO 19650 guidelines that are now global. Pretty much all of the countries that I've worked with, they are trying to use ISO 19650 to define the asset information requirements, to build those asset information model. All of these questions need to be answered, right? Because otherwise what you will get is the traditional 2D deliverables, the PDF files that are nice, but when you open the file itself with the information, you will see thousands of errors, of warnings. And it may look nice, but it's going to be not very useful for the downstream users. And I'm not talking about only facility managers. A lot of designers and builders, they're like, yeah, that's not for me because I'm just an architect, or I'm just a builder. Remember that when you come back in a few years to start fixing that facility that you just built, you're going to get crappy models because you provided the crappy models to the owner in the first place. And when you have crappy models, you increase your risk. And with increasing your risk, you reduce your profit. And people are just not thinking long-term. They don't think 5 to 10 years ahead. Well, not everybody. Smart guys like companies like DPR Construction in the US, like some of the Skanska, some of the Clark Construction people, they already realize that. So they build their tools that keep them attached to the client, keep them attached to they said, well, wait a minute. If I build this facility Why would anybody else will work on this? I will continue to renovate it. I will continue to build expansions. I want to continue to, because this is the owner that pays me money. Why would I next time be another regular contractor and I will bid from scratch as if I never worked with this client, right? So they use the useful models as an attachment to the client, to the end user. In order to provide the quality model to them, we suggest strongly to perform data quality control activities. Here is a sample of the US Department of Veterans Affairs. It's a huge government agency, has about 150 hospitals across the US, military hospitals. And what they do is they have some very basic requirements for the assets. Let's say for pumps, so I need this info, for compressors, I need that information, for valves, I need this information. And that's what they attach typically to the contract. Within Ecodomus, you can establish requirements based on their specification. So you can define the object structure, which fields the client wants, what kind of fields should be in a type pump, what fields should be in a type valve, what kind of documents we need to collect. So when somebody fills out the information in the system, they already know what fields to populate, right? For each stage, you can define the different set of requirements, because obviously serial number, for example, is not required during design, but it is required at the end of the construction. So you can define those fields, you can define those ranges of acceptable values. Let's say the fire rating field should be between 60 and 120 minutes. You can specify that field. And if your imported data set from, let's say you imported the IFC file or Revit file, and now you want to see whether that file contains the good information. And now you see, no, there are some issues there. So you see that this pump is missing the size field, this valve is missing water test fields, and it's missing these documents. So you can upload those missing documents, you can enter those water test dates, and now you solve the issue. Those of you who are familiar with Celebri know that they've been doing that with IFCs. And then you need to republish, update. You need to go back to the native application, update it, then republish IFC, and then check again. Here, you don't have to do that because you can fix the issue right in the CDE. And the other issue is I'm not really a fan of pushing every data inside of the geometry model. You know, what's the value is of the field manufacturer's phone number inside of the IFC file? What are you going to do with it, right? Or what's the value of any like airflow rates if you're not using it for calculations, let's say. Anyway, so here's what you can do within Ecodomus. You can upload those documents, you can attach them, and you can run a lot of other queries through the data. Let's say we have this feature called filters where you can define your standard formulas. Let's say all my doors need to start with DR and then something else. So if you found the doors, but they start with some other character, then it captures that as an error. Or you can say, I have, let's say, about 3,500 or 3,418 various objects, but I only need VAVs, variable air volume boxes. That means that field name contains VAV and cost is greater than 200. So I only need those that cost more than 200. Okay, so I have found 15 objects that are VAVs and that cost more than $200. Or I want to see what have been installed last month. So like I say, commission date should be between January 1st, January 31st. And it extracts only those data points. And I can see the same, I can export that to Excel and to Power BI, or to Click or Tableau, or I can say, show me that inside of the 3D model. And it finds those 15 objects, says, yeah, here are your 15 boxes. Let me adjust a little bit the geometry to make it more transparent, the background. So yeah, so I see those VAV boxes. I can click on each one of those and understand what's happening. What are the attributes of this specific VAV box, right? And what are those commissioned objects? So the analysis is not just based on the text or traditional Power BI kind of a chart, but it's also visual in 3D. Those who want to use that kind of approach, but are afraid to name Ecodomus specifically in their tenders, we have some standard language that does not really mention Ecodomus. Well, I mean, some tenders do go for that. They specify that we need to use, let's say, the contractor needs to use Revit, Navisworks, and Ecodomus. There are some like that, but if you cannot use it, public tenders, usually we have some language that doesn't mention Ecodomus that you can insert in your standard tenders. So what's the use for the CDE during the design construction side? It's, first of all, we help to understand how to build the useful BIM that is on the modeling side. We establish the quality control workflows. We provide different ways of data entry. So some people can enter the data using the browser interface. Some can use the mobile interface. I'll show you in a minute. Some can use import of Excel file. Some can be using integration. So different ways of populating the central database. At the same time, we remember that it's not always about 3D and BIM modeling tools. Information is also stored in unstructured data sets like traditional PDFs or Excels or some other files. So we have the document file management storage. The difference between us and many other document management solutions is that our ability to link to the BIM is more advanced. You can link it to either individual instance or to the asset type or to a space or to a zone or to a floor or to a facility. So plus it supports all the traditional workflows like redlining, on top of the PDF, creating the issues for the PDFs, lock-in, check-in, check-out functionality, unlimited metadata, ability to create the workflows where you can establish the automatic notifications depending on the change of the stage of this document, auto naming. So it's a full-blown EDMS with 19650 compliance if needed, but it's way more than that, right? So our ability to work both with metadata and with the files is unmatched. Even comparing the PDFs, one version with another to see what has changed within the latest versions of the file. Like when you scroll it, it will show you what has changed there. So in terms of the issues management, there's also a full module that allows you to establish the issues tracking. Again, the difference is that you connect to the same component, the same type, the same space as you use for assets data collection. Those of you who have worked with BIM 360, for example, you know that all of those are separate applications that Autodesk bought over the period of time. This is a single platform that actually has been developed. All of these features were developed in parallel. So if you want to look at this component and see what documents are assigned, what issues are assigned, what are the scattered data is assigned, all of it is the same database. These are not separate apps. You can create the issues in 3D as well, or in the point cloud. You can attach those to the created issues. So let's say here I'm selecting this fan. Let's say this fan is supposed to be right here somewhere, so you want to move it. Notice that fan is actually attached as an object to the issue. So, and I can create a markup to specify exactly where it is and where it's supposed to be. And so that issue is now BCF compliant, so I can send it somewhere else. BCF is BIM collaboration format. It's an open standard. And the changes within that issue can be tracked over the period of time. You can see what was there, when it was changed, who changed it, who said what. So the whole history of the issue is being tracked. At the same time, we obviously not trying to, we cannot be everything for everybody, right? So there are plenty of applications that do a good job in sensors management or maintenance management or space management. So almost always we integrate with some other application because like I mentioned earlier, digital twin is when you have a lot of different systems all talking to each other. Like for example, in Sydney Opera House, that's the approach that these are the systems they used. These are the main asset register, secondary asset register, work order management system, engineering drawing system, main documents management system, Honeywell, plus Revit was used as a source. Plus we also integrate with another system and provided the also mobile solution as well. Here's how the sample looks like for one of our water clients. That's the model they developed. Actually, in this case, we didn't do the integration. They did the integration themselves using our API. We have a REST web services API that our clients and partners can use to develop extra functionality. So in this case, they imported the BIM data, but they also integrated with Maxima. So this is the Maxima data. They integrated with OSI Pi server, which is the SCADA solution, and they integrated with Inflow, which is the document management solution. So if they wanted to see, let's say, last SCADA data, they could select some period of time, let's say March 16th, 17th, and it was showing the current frequency, power, and torque for this pump. So you can see what's going on, right? How when we integrate with the other solutions, we usually use web services. Yes, you can push back and forth some Excel files. It's doable, but it's not a real solution. It's just a temporary patch. There is no synchronization of data. When you have RESTful web services integrations, definitely you can do a better job. We map the fields because there's always some least common denominator. Not every field from every system has to be integrated, right? So we only integrate the core fields and the rest is being extracted. How we get the data in, we have plugins. We have the IFC data processor and we have the Revit plugin and we have Bentley plugins. So you define what kind of data from the file you want to extract, and the data from this single file, all of these properties of an asset, instance, and type properties, they get extracted into Ecodomus database. And the geometry itself is being published as the XML file, and that's what we use for the viewer. We use our own viewer because we like Autodesk Viewer in Forge, but unfortunately it only works in the cloud, and a lot of clients of ours prefer to host it on the premises because of the security problems. You know, everybody gets hacked these days. So if you have a design construction workflows, you don't care much, you can host it in the cloud, nobody cares. But if you have some critical legacy system, most probably you're gonna host it behind the firewall and disconnected from public internet solutions. So we built our own viewer, as well as the viewer that we have allows you to work on mobile in native format. Forge doesn't allow you to do that. It's only browser based. With GIS integration, we use the Esri as the front end. We also use MapView as the front end, Mapbox, I think. Yeah, so, and in this case, like you see, we can integrate, you can jump from the GIS view for the assets, horizontal or linear assets, you can jump into the viewer where it can be combined. All of your different types of files can be combined. So in this view, for example, I have the above ground modeled in Revit or ArchiCAD, I don't remember which one. Underground utilities were modeled in 12D and Civil 3D and IFC, and this imported as IFC files. And the point cloud was imported, the point cloud taken from the aerial drone. So all of that was aligned to show what's happening with the context of the BIM and the real life cloud scenario. Or you can use this example, like I mentioned, the map box, where you can place some buildings as just shapes and some buildings with full LOD 500 BIM, where you can connect systems, objects, etc., etc. It's like, show me where is that shadow board, what circuit I need to go to, etc. On the mobile side, an iPad app, an Android app. iPad is more advanced. More of our clients are using iPads. It's easier to manage at the enterprise level, and they are more powerful usually. So they use it for field issues, taking corrections, inspections, reviewing the documents in the field, filling out the forms, including the PDF forms. QR codes and barcodes are supported as well. So you can scan some thing and it finds that thing in the model, and then you update attributes for that thing in the model. Or here, like you do performance inspections, this was done for the cleaning control for the assets in this way. So this is the upper house interface where they click on the floor where you have these faults, And these folds are associated with the photos, and the photos are, and the forms and folds are assigned to some assets, and you track them using the mobile interface. On the Internet of Things, there's a lot of sensors nowadays, not just the traditional HVAC stuff or electrical. We use MQTT quite often for IoT integration, which is MQTT is the open standard, open protocol for IoT data. Traditionally, like I mentioned earlier when I said for digital twins, the idea of seeing how it's supposed to work versus how it actually works is one of the key goals of digital twins. Is you use simulation to understand how the asset should work, and then you see from the sensors whether it works within the appropriate range or not. Like if it's at 60, 70% capacity, that's fine. It's normal. If it's at 95% capacity, it's probably going to be, its life expectancy is going to be shorter than planned, so you can plan better. Right? This is the example from the largest data center in Eastern Europe. The ability to use the model for visualization of what's going on with the assets based on real-time data from the sensors. So you see it's changing the colors and the blinking status depending on what's going on here. So that's not that far from you guys. Other integrations with the video, like in here, and the presence sensors that capture the human shapes and tell you how many people are in that particular area at the moment. So this was done for training the first responders and security personnel. These models are much simpler than traditional because they usually contain only architectural geometry, not HVAC or electrical, because for this use case, that's what they wanted. And laser scanning point clouds, I showed you earlier, the aerial drone laser scans. These are the laser scanning within the facility, one of the airports. And in this case, you see some elements were modeled as parametric BIM objects and some elements were just laser scans. So you can see them visually, but they are not clickable, right? So in this case, chiller is clickable, it's an object. Everything around it is just a point cloud. So you can use it as the light version if you don't have enough budget for modeling everything, or you want to improve the visualization. That's some of the workflows that can be enhanced and done. Like you can also augment that with the panoramic photos if needed. You can add the extra object as well. So this is an example where you have a traditionally done Revit file or ArchiCAD file, but there are some things that usually excluded from modeling, let's say door sensors or some handles, or you just want to block some space and say, well, guys, don't use that space. I'm going to use it for my boxes, right? So you can place some shapes within Ecodomus, and then these obviously become just empty shapes, but then you can link them to your database using our feature called link to data. And then your object becomes not just a shape, but it becomes a shape that links that is linked to the database. In this case, it's an intelligent object. So that's kind of things you can do also with the application. So that's pretty much it in terms of some functionalities. There are more features, more books written about us. We were actually, if you've heard about BIM Handbook, which is the #1 book in this industry, Chuck Eastman unfortunately died last year, but 3 out of 11 case studies in this book are ours. Pretty much all of the BIM2FM projects are ours. That's my contact information. Eric is our chief representative in the Baltics, so I'm happy to support his team. Any questions, Eric?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I don't see that anyone has written the questions, and given that we have given that the time limit, and maybe we'll could you maybe share your experience and what is typical time necessary for starting from the, so let's say that somebody who's listening right now to this presentation, who's considering to implement this Ecodomus to his facilities. What is the approximate time frame necessary from just an idea till the actual system working and deployed on their for their sites?
So the software itself, you just get the login. It takes 1 minute, and then you log in and you can start working. So it's a traditional SaaS thing that you can pretty much jump on and be there right away. And importing a file, let's say if it's not a very huge file, it may take a few minutes. So the speed of getting data in is one question, but in terms of making sure that it's a well-calibrated file, it's a clean file, and that you solve you figured out the use case, that may take months, because typical files, like I said, they have hundreds, if not thousands of errors, disconnected systems, or bad naming conventions, or missing data, or something like that. So that takes quite a lot of time. Integrations also take a lot of time because people try to figure out what they have. It turns out nobody has good data. One of my colleagues from Cushman and Wakefield, he said, when we started working with Google, our advice to them was throw everything you have away, because there's so much crap. It's difficult to figure out what is good, what is bad, and start collecting from scratch. So even the rich and successful facility owners really have bad quality of data, and that may take years to clean up. So while the solution itself is easy to jump in, it's all about what's the scope of implementation. I usually suggest doing it in phases. I saw some examples where the client said, oh, I really love your approach. We have these 7 systems, let's integrate them all. That's the potential for disaster, because they haven't even loaded the first model. They don't understand what it is. So start with just basics, learn how to build it for one building. It's going to take you 6 to 12 months. Then integrate it with one of the systems or 2 of the systems. Then that will take you another year. And so this process will take definitely some time to learn. People understand some concepts that this industry doesn't have a lot of mathematicians, and the concept of the well-structured data set is a bit foreign to this industry, right? So that's why it takes time. But if you don't start, I had a client who said, yeah, everything that you presented makes sense. We will wait until we understand it all, then we will start doing it. Well, you will not understand it if you're not doing it. So you can wait, but they probably it was like 5 years ago. I'm 100% sure they still don't understand it the same way they didn't understand it 5 years ago. So if you want to move it towards this, just start doing it. It's not rocket science. It's just, it requires you to learn, right? So these concepts, there are a lot of the foreign key, primary key relationships, the linkages, the optimizations. All of that is pretty simple to learn, but it's there is a lot of information here. So that's the answer. Anything else? Nope. I think that everybody's happy. Either they didn't understand anything I was saying.
I was trying to unmute. Yeah, so I guess this learn by doing approach is still valid, as this is also our recommendation. Definitely start small, step by step, and learn by doing. And I see that we have one question. What is the difference between Ecodomus and Manhattan program?
Manhattan is a CAFM, so it's supposed to be, like you see, it's here. CAFM applications are created for managing primarily for managing spatial information, and on top of that, they have been adding other functionalities like managing the work orders, managing the furniture, managing move and hot and cold, etc. So every application selects some primary functionality and adds on top of that something else. They also added a 3D interface, like all of them, Archibus, Planon, Tririga, etc. But again, the core for them is managing some processes. Our approach is a bit different. We selected not to automate the process, but the product. So for us, the core for Ecodomus, the core is the information about the elements of a structure. For guys like Chiriga, Archibald, Plano, Manhattan, for them, the primary thing is let's automate facility management as a process. And if we don't need some data points about the facility, that doesn't matter. For us, every single element within the facility matters, and the processes come later because some things that some assets that we manage, let's say, they are more useful for the BMS vendors. Some information more valuable for work order management, right? So that's why we don't go into each of those specific industries. Like we are not CMMS, we are not CAFM. We are a accommodating environment that contains information about the asset. So if that answers your question, I think that's what I was trying to answer.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I see that we have just a couple of minutes, and typically, as usual, the price question is always interesting for everybody to listen. Maybe you can give us some indications about prices and levels, and given that you have so big of experience in implementing and deploying this system.
Pretty much most of the vendors in this industry, like we price it the same way as Autodesk or Bentley. It's a SaaS approach, and it's price per user per year or per month. So in the same ballpark as BIM 360, but probably cheaper because they usually sell by modules. We sell as a platform. So if you count BIM 360 docs plus field plus ops plus assembled, so we are way cheaper. But if you compare, let's say, only docs with Ecodomus, then it's not a fair comparison because we provide much more. But we can negotiate. But typically, it's from $30 to $90 per user per month.
Okay. Yeah, great. I guess I will encourage everybody who's listening, and also everybody who will listen for this recording later on, to just ask us the question. And and at this point, I would like to say thank you for your time and for sharing your information. And I guess right now I'm going to switch to also Latvian just to wrap up everything. And paldies vēlreiz visiem tie, kas skatījās, un tiešām vēlreiz gribētu uzsvērt to šīs platformas, varbūt to unikālo būtību, tas, ka mums ir vienota vide, kur iespēja mums savienot visas dažādākās platformas, kas ļauj veiksmīgi pārvaldīt mūsu īpašumu, veidojot šo te digitālo tvīni. Un noteikti, ja ir arī turpmāk kādi jautājumi un vai ir principā vajadzība pēc ieviešanas, tādu sistēmas visaptvarošu ieviešanu vai daļu ieviešanas, noteikti uzdodiet jautājumus. Un visus jautājumus, kurus mēs neuzspējam jums atbildēt. Es redzu vienu jautājumu, un es varbūt viņu vēl atbildēšu, un tad arī mēs ar šo beigsim, jo es redzu, ka vēl minūte ir. Igor, I'm going to be switching really, really fast to you because there's just one latest question. And after that, we're going to close. So the question is, which facility management system you are recommending for work with BIM?
Any one that you can afford financially, because they all pretty much the same. If it depends also on the size of your organization. Let's say if you want more customization from the package, then you need an expensive system like IBM Maxima. Let's say if you only want to open and close work orders, you can go with any of those. So we have some features within Ecodomus as well. So some people who don't know what they want, they can start using Ecodomus for the FM as well. And then they can go for a more sophisticated application as they learn more about the workflows.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for the question, for the last minute answer. And with this, I will say again, thank you, Igor, for your time, and have a nice rest of the day. And paldies visiem, kas piedalījās. Kā jau minēju, noteikti uzdodat jautājumus. Apskatiet platformu viņu mājaslapā. Šis video ieraksts būs pieejams mūsu YouTube kanālā. Paldies vēlreiz, un tad tikšanos. Okay, thank you very much, and bye.
Sure, bye-bye.